Welcome to the Elephant Room, where we tackle the unspoken, uncomfortable, and unseen truth. Join Linda Carmouche, your host, a licensed therapist, mental wellness strategist, and speaker, going beyond titles, addressing the emotional scars, hidden trauma, fears, and the silent battles many professionals face but rarely discuss. Come on in. The Elephant Room, where vulnerability meets strength. Hit subscribe and connect with hope, healing, and the courage to address the elephant in the room. Remember, the content here is for informational purposes only. Seek help from a qualified professional for mental health concerns, and discretion is advised for sensitive topics.
Hello, good people. What is up? I am Linda Carmouche, host of The Elephant Room, where we talk about all the things we don't really want to talk about. So, tonight we are going to have some conversations about attachment styles and how they tend to keep us stuck. We're going to open the book to Polish Pain and begin to deal with those pains that are hurting us on the inside, even though we are polished and shining on the outside. You may have heard attachment styles in the past, but maybe you don't really know what it is or how it impacts your day to day life. A lot of times people think that attachment styles only deal with babies or children, but children grow up, and if you don't understand your attachment style, it can play a huge part in how you engage with people, even in your adult life. So we're going to go on and get this party started. If you are here, you're in the chat box, talk to me, let me know that you're in the room. And we're going to bring Miranda in. Miranda Campbell is with us tonight. And let me tell y'all something. Don't let the sweet face fool y'all. I had the opportunity of spending 5 days in Mexico with Miranda, and let me tell you, she's a bag of goodness. So give me some love in the chat box for Miranda as she come into the elephant room. Hello, Miranda.
Hello, my
How are you?
señorita.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I have done something silly right there. I don't know what I did. I want to go ahead and jump into the conversation, and I want you to tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I am Miranda. I'm still with that Mexico vibe, but I'm actually from California, so like it tracks. My favorite food to eat is tacos, chips, and salsa. So I was just in heaven for those 5 days, in addition to like meeting you and our wonderful group. But I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am currently living in Atlanta, ATL, showed it.
All right.
I'm also licensed in Florida and South Carolina, so I'm able to see folks there. So I've
Okay.
been practicing for like a long time. It's funny when people ask, it's hard. I feel so old. I have to like carry the one. Like, when did I start? I became a therapist.
You were
I
little. You were
graduated.
little. You were real little when you became a
Yeah,
therapist.
I
We
was a
got all kinds of people
baby.
hollering hello in the chat. What's up, Asia? We see you in the room. Hello, New
Hey,
Orleans is represented. Lafayette, Louisiana's in the house. They giving you all kinds of love in the room right now,
what
Miranda.
up? Thank you, thank you.
See, for those of you that think that all therapists do is sit on the sofa across from you and say, how do you feel? You have gotten a taste of some real life therapy going on over here.
Yeah.
Miranda clearly is not the one asking, how are you feeling in the room?
Hmm.
So I want to start with talking about survival mode, because
Okay.
that's one of the things that I think happens. And I don't think we ever plan to get into survival mode, but I think we find ourselves there more often than not. If you had to describe what survival mode looked like for the everyday person, when you get up, you going to work, talk to me, Miranda. What might that look like, being stuck in survival mode?
Oh gosh, internally, it's a mind F. It truly is. It may be something that you may not even have awareness about. And when you do have awareness about, it feels like you're stuck in an outer body experience. Like you're doing stuff that you really don't like, but it feels like you can't help yourself. It might even look familiar to you. It might be the stuff that you vowed you would never, ever do, that you observed in your childhood from some folks. But here
Wait a
you
minute. Wait
are.
a minute.
Here
Hold
you
on.
are doing the do.
Hey, some stuff we vowed not to do, but we're doing it. You got to tell what that might look like.
I call it our default settings. And
Okay.
so, what I mean by that is that whatever we observed and experienced in our childhood, whether it was good, bad, whatever, it just is it forms our narrative. It informs us of like how the world is and how it should work. So we often vow not to do it, but if we don't actively engage in doing something different or healing from those things, we find ourselves repeating it. And that's where you get the generational stuff going on.
Mm. So would it be like a person who grows up and they might feel like the way their mom raised them, they didn't really like what she did. And so sometimes you'll hear people say, I don't want to be nothing like my mama when I grow up. But then one day you wake up and you realize, I'm just like my mama.
Yes, and that could be painful. That could be so painful. And it doesn't mean that you had like the most horrible mom ever. It just means
Correct.
that you naturally, we all should want to do better.
Mhm.
Naturally, as the generations continue, we should have progressed from our mom. Like that would be crazy not to, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty. I think about that commercial. If you want to look at it in a more neutral, uncharged way, I think it may have been like a cell phone commercial where it's like you're turning into your parents, like here you are now wearing the dad pants, or like just doing all the like. I feel that way every time I pick up a device. I'm like, oh, well, how do I do this?
Yes. Because we
You gotta
were
mess with
saying
it.
that the old people didn't know how to do it. And now we're
Mhm.
saying, how do we do this?
Yeah,
I
I'm
also
at the
think,
go ask your father about how to turn on that video game.
yeah, yeah, because I don't know. I don't
No.
know. I think sometimes getting stuck means we have dreams, we have hopes, and we may have even tried to work toward reaching some of those things. But you wake up one day and realize you're in a job that you don't like. You're laying beside a spouse that you can't stand. You're in the house with children that you don't recognize. And somewhere along the way, you lost yourself and you got stuck.
I think that happens often. I mean, to tie it into the original question in survival mode, sometimes we have to do what is undesired or illogical because it makes us feel safe.
Make it plain for me.
So while I know that it's unproductive to lash out at people when I'm hurt, it is a default setting that comes up because it's the only
Mm.
way that I've learned or observed in how to
Oh,
keep
that's
myself
so
safe.
good. That's so good. That's so good. I think that happens when people were raised also, for example, if their parents used a lot of profanity with them and they know that it didn't feel good, but they
Mm-hmm.
find themselves as adults doing the same thing with their kids, automatically using the cuss words. Do you know what cuss mean, Miranda? Because it's not the same as curse. Do
No.
you-
I mean,
cuss,
I like to do
cuss is like
it.
cuss is like gutter.
Okay. So I think I curse.
Then you curse. Okay, you curse.
Okay.
Well, you curse. Some people cuss
Yeah.
in
I
the
want to
chat
cuss.
box.
In my head, it sounds like a cuss, but it comes out as a
It's a
curse.
curse. So in the chat
Yeah.
box, y'all tell me, y'all out there cursing or cussing. I hope you saying
Right.
neither. Okay.
Right.
And so I think sometimes, as much as you hurt when somebody uses that language with you, it is your default. It's what you've learned. And so you, in turn, find yourself doing it with your kids. I can remember when I worked with a lot of parents who were abusing their kids through spanking, whipping, beating. And I can remember many of them saying, I don't know any other way. It was their default. And even though they didn't like it, they did it because they didn't know
Yeah.
any other way.
Yeah. That sums it
And
up really well.
yeah, that's getting stuck. I hear Kimberly saying, "Sister, I cuss." She cuss. Oh, oh, sister, that's her mama. She said her mama was cussing. She wasn't cursing. She was cussing. We keep it real in the elephant room, Miranda. We keeping it real.
Yes.
So I want you to break down for us. You do a lot of work, and you're even in the process of getting ready to launch a book about attachment styles. Attachment
Yes.
styles sounds like a really big therapy term. Can you help just break it down as if I never ever heard of it? How could you help me to understand? What does that mean?
Mhm. Some people, I don't often use this term, but I think it explains it well. Some people don't call it attachment style, they call it attachment adaptations. And I think using that word in the context of our conversation really drives home the point of I'm behaving in a way that keeps me safe. So, for a securely attached person, they may not be threatened by things that an insecurely attached person may be threatened by. Perhaps, if you don't call them back when you say that they do, they're the friend that you're just like in awe about, because their response to that is, oh, they must have gotten caught up by something.
Okay, hold
But for
on,
an
hold on,
anxiously
hold on.
attached person,
Hold on, Miranda, you're trying to take me fast. Hold on.
I'm sorry, I'm
Because
sorry.
you slid something in there and then you
I
just kept
did.
on
I did.
going.
Sorry. So the types of insecure attachments are anxious, right? And avoidant. I'm just gonna keep it that simple.
Okay,
Anxious or
we got to
avoidant.
break it
But I
down
really
even more.
like,
We got to break it down
okay.
even more. When you say an anxious attachment style,
Hmm.
what does that look like?
Yeah, let me tell you. So an anxious person would interpret the person not calling is, what did I do? Is something wrong? Oh, we must not be friends anymore, or we're gonna break up, or they don't like it goes to this extreme, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that would be a difference. An avoidant person may shut off any emotions. They definitely may not confront the issue. They don't feel safe with conflict oftentimes. So it's just something that if the other person doesn't connect, they're not going to connect either. And so oftentimes the relationship could fizzle.
Okay, you don't know this. I don't think you know this. That I used to have a drama company.
Okay.
So every now and then the drama queen shows up and I feel her
Hmm.
knocking at the door. Okay. So what I heard you say is a simple scenario is that you have two friends, you and me, and I
Hmm.
call you and leave a voice message, but you don't call me back. If I have an anxious attachment style, I go over the top. She must be mad at me. Oh my God, she must don't want to be my friend anymore. These are the feelings that I'm having, and I'm playing this story in my own head. It's not a conversation
Yes.
I'm having with you. That's what you just told me, right?
Yes.
You said if I have an avoidant attachment style, I'm not going to call you And if you don't call me, we may just not even be friends anymore.
Yeah,
Because I'm
pretty much.
avoiding the confrontation with you, right?
Right.
Where does this come from?
Yeah, it oftentimes, when I'm working with my clients, it never fails that we can kind of trace it back to something that happened earlier in their life. This could be in their childhood with their caregivers or whoever's around them at that time. It could be something that has occurred at school. A lot of times we can uncover like the initial attachment wound, but then we can also connect the dots and talk about and discover the secondary wounds, the things that happened that felt similar to
Hmm.
the initial wound. Where in it, that's how the narrative becomes so strong and so convincing. Like you
Okay.
can't tell me in my anxious attachment state that I'm not wrong. Those feelings feel very real, and they may lead to behaviors that, in retrospect, had me looking crazy. Blowing up your phone, like, you ain't gonna call me. Oh, I'm gonna call you. Let me drive by. Oh no, you're not.
Wait a
And so
minute. I heard drive by.
drive by. And so
So,
that's how the thoughts could lead to behaviors that disrupt relationships. It makes it a very unstable, um, not a very sustainable situation.
so I heard you say that this could happen based on how we, I'm going to use a different word. You said
Okay.
attached to our caregiver. So you're saying, because I don't want my listeners
Mhm.
to miss
Yes.
this because I think it's so important. Whoever raised me, how I connected to them, how I bonded with them, how I attached to them determines a lot of the times how I am playing these things out in my adult life with my children, with my husband, my work buddies, my friends. All of this is connected. And one of the listeners said to early childhood.
Hmm. Absolutely. To
You
early
didn't
childhood.
you done came in with smoking guns, Miranda.
I did. We got right. I'm like hot. We really jumped in pretty fast, but it's just whatever we learned would make us feel safe and protected. So for some, I guess, let's say you had a single parent that was really busy, didn't have a lot of time, maybe justifiably, right? It's not that they were like a horrible parent. They just had
No,
to hustle to get
gotta work.
things, yeah, get things done. So you may adopt the belief that I'm not very important, or I unless I do something grand, I won't get attention, or if I need something, no one's going to show up for me, so why ask anyway, right? So you bring those adaptations into adult relationships, and they aren't always going to work for you in the same way. A lot of times it's misapplied, or it's let's carry out the scenario. So the person that whose parent was maybe present, very good provider, but wasn't emotionally present, right?
Okay.
And their response to that was to be uber independent and not to rely on anyone, just figure it out on their own.
Okay.
In an adult relationship, let's say their partner replicate some of the same things that they experienced in childhood, where they're seeing them very busy, not emotionally present. Their response to that might be more grandiose, more exaggerated, more explosive, or their feeling of internal threat may be heightened because they're
Mm,
experiencing it from the lens of in the present, but also all the times that they felt this way before. Thus, they're going to get it for today, the time that my friend did this, the time that the homie and them did this, my mama and them did this, they're going to get all the brunt of all of that if you
that is so
don't
good.
check it and heal it.
Because if you don't know that it's there, I think sometimes we adopt, this is how I've
Mhm.
always been. but it
Hmm.
doesn't mean this is how it has to always be.
No.
Attachment styles are very important, and you described a secure attachment style almost, and then you threw in a monkey wrench and said, but the
I
parent
know,
wasn't
I know.
emotionally there. So if we're talking about all of these attachment styles that are unhealthy, and as you're talking, I'm thinking of all the ways they play out. Sometimes people become extremely clingy. I know
Mhm.
individuals that have gone through divorces because they need to know where their spouse is. They got all the trackers on them. They passing by the work, making sure that they're still at work when they say they're at work. All the things, and it drives people away from them because they're so
Mhm.
clingy. But that's really an attachment style that we're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, they don't know how to productively get that need met. And the need is reassurance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so they're seeking out reassurance in ways that push the partner away versus scratching that itch for reassurance or bringing them closer.
Yeah. How does it play out with parents and their children? What might that look like?
Yeah. I guess same way that it would in any other relationship. It's not that much different. And so the way that I've learned to connect in my childhood may be the way that I seek out connection with my child inadvertently,
Like a smother mother
potentially. Yeah.
who, yeah, who can only connect with the child when they're right there with them all the time, doing all the things to the point they're
Hmm.
sleeping in the same bed with the child instead of the bed with the husband, things like that. So,
Potentially. Yeah, that's hard. I guess I don't think about it from that perspective a lot. I usually think about it from the perspective of the things that we do that could potentially um, make our children insecurely attached. And that's leaving the child with another caregiver without saying
mm,
goodbye, thinking that they're like saving the child and others from distress. Really, they're saving themselves. like let the kid cry. It's okay. It's so I'm glad that we're talking about this because I also think that this kind of foreshadows what healing looks like, right? I feel
mm,
that healing happens in a series of mini experiments. And so when you leave that child, let's say you leave them at grandma's house and they're kind of young, they're very attached to you, you leave, really that child is going to be fine. More than likely, after 5 to 10 minutes, they're going to forget what happened and they're going to move on,
yeah,
right? But what's happening in that moment when they are distressed is they may need reassurance that you're going to come back. Now,
yes,
you can tell them they may get it, they may not, they may get it to an extent, but when you do come back, that's building in that bank of security and trust. And so, yeah, yeah, I don't know.
so let's
You
move
ask
that
me.
same series over because I think sometimes when we talk about healing, I always reference healing as a journey because I feel like any type of healing that you need, it's not going to be a microwavable type of healing.
Mhm.
But if you take that same scenario and you bring it over to the adult who has been wounded and they're working on healing in let's just say a relationship, it's going to happen in a series of experiences. You
Mhm.
may not feel as comfortable when that person who you didn't trust or you don't trust because of your past, when they say, you can trust me, I will be back, I'm going to go here and come right back. But after they have done that 10 times, you are now open, if you're intentional about it, to begin the healing process over time. So I
Mhm.
think it works for children, but I also think it works for adults
Yeah,
if
it's
we
very
allow
necessary
if we allow
if we
it.
allow it.
Yeah, because
I
we have a
think
choice.
I'd say one mistake that I hear people make is, oh, I'm going to take a break from dating. Breaks from dating is great as long as there's some active recovery in there, right? Meaning you don't show up to the dating scene again the same person you were when you left it. Otherwise, what's going to be different? It's going to be same drama, just a different partner.
That's my rewind button.
Yeah.
You said active recovery. Don't
Active
you take, let me break
recovery.
it down because you're so professional and kind. Let
Yeah.
me bring the hood version. Don't you take your tail out there dating nobody else. Get off of them apps until you have put forth an effort to heal what was broken in the last relationship.
Yeah, and I don't think people like know what to do, and that's totally understandable. But time is not enough. It doesn't matter how much time.
Time doesn't
Really,
heal
what
all.
matters is what you do in that time, whether it's a day or 100 days. What I do with that time is what's most important.
That's my rewind. It's not the time, it's what you do with the time. Go
Mhm.
on and drop them gems, why don't you, Miranda? Drop them gems. That's so good because there's a saying, time heals all, baby.
No,
No.
time is just, yeah, you're the same
Time.
person, just older.
you done
Same
been off
person,
the
older version.
you done been off the dating scene 10 years and you done came back still the same because you ain't
Yeah,
did nothing to help
yeah,
yourself. I want to know, I'm going to dig a little bit. Have you had any personal experiences with attachment stuff that you've had to work through?
absolutely. Every day, all day.
Okay. Healing journey.
I think it's important to note, I guess, here that one, attachment styles are not permanent. If you suspect that you may have an insecure attachment style, you're not doomed. There are great qualities of you. You are lovable. You can have a sustainable, successful relationship. But again, it's you taking the time to recover, right? That's how it's built. You build a secure attachment. You don't inherit or just luck up into one. And so, but let's say you are someone who started out with an insecure attachment and then you become secure. It is still possible that you revert, given the right
Yeah.
circumstances, the right person. But that's in reflecting, it's likely that you felt threatened in some way.
Okay.
Whether that threat was actually real, like you should have felt threatened, or if it was more of like a perceived threat. Like I thought that coat rack was the boogeyman. And so I acted a fool, but it really was nothing. So I wanted to preface it in that way. But anecdotally, I've never shared this story, so it may be interesting to people that know me. So when I first started dating my husband, I was really like thrown off by him because, so for one, we started dating before the apps. And so it was like more of like the eHarmony and that phase. So we met on Match.com. Um,
Come on, match.
and so I know. Thank you, Match. So we met on Match.com. He did not want to talk off the app before our first date. So I thought that was weird, but I was like, whatever. I was so unserious showing up to the first date, but I thought he was cool. I think it was more of like I started to become more aware of my attachment style by the frequency of which like he reached out. I was so used to the constant reassurance, the constant text, the good morning, the good night, let me talk to you while I'm working, like all that stuff. And here's a man who's secure and just he'd call me to schedule dates. It wasn't all this lip service with nothing behind it. It was more action, action, action. And I had to adjust. Like I had to metaphorically take a deep breath, like, whoa. Like I didn't know what to do with myself. And so that was definitely an adjustment.
Did it
Um,
make you question if he was genuine or not because it was different?
Girl, in my head, we had broken up every time there was a gap in my head. I was like, anyways, I have other options.
Oh my gracious, I have met your husband who is such a cool dude. And you were like, we done broke up? Like, really?
Mhm. But then when he called, I'd be talking again. I'd be like, Snooky.
Oh
He'd be
my
like,
gracious.
okay, well, I guess. Oh, you want to take me out? Okay, I guess we can go.
You know, I'll put the others on the back burner since you're back
Yeah,
in.
put your back. Yeah, I didn't know how to interpret the the silence. And girl, the silence was like maybe a day, maybe two. He wasn't doing anything nefarious. Like it was just he didn't need all that to feel good about where our relationship was. And that was my
Mm.
first like romantic model of a securely attached individual.
Wow. I wonder, and you may not remember
Uh-oh.
because it's been a while, but I wonder how much extra stress, mental stress, did you put yourself through because it was different than
Mhm. My face.
your face told me the
A
whole
lot of gymnastics.
story. And I'm thank you for being
Yes,
transparent
mental
because I
gymnastics.
think we do that to ourselves and we're going, okay, well, I know why you didn't call, and we're analyzing it, and we're emotionally going through all the motions, and that's not what he was thinking at all.
Mhm. Not at all, no. But I was thinking for the both of us. In my head, it was like I was literally a crazy person. I was having the conversations, arguments in my head, just playing out this whole script that just was not reality. But guess what? It's the issue is not that I felt that way. The issue is how I responded to it.
Mm,
So I had to learn to respond in more like reality testing, fact
yes,
finding, a
yes,
more secure way of handling it. Even though I may not have felt secure, I could still act secure, right?
yeah.
So if I want to, what happens? So we talked about the many experiences or many experiments. So if I act secure, that might look like, so what do you do when you're not talking to me? Approaching it with curiosity, right?
Mm,
Or getting to know a little bit about how he dates, his philosophy, or asking him, "Do you still like me?" As elementary as that sounds, if I need to hear that, if I need to be validated in that way, then just ask,
check
"Do you
yes
still like me?"
or no. You still
Thank
like
you. Like, do what you need to do, but me making this stuff up and acting like, "Oh, then I'm just gonna, like, entertain other things or just
yeah.
fall back," that would get me single real quick, right? And then
Ooh,
it would reinforce those narratives that if they don't show me all this attention, that means that they don't like me. Where if I would have acted in a secure way, I would have gotten reinforced. And that would have been another building block to me actually developing an eventual
healing.
secure attachment.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Okay, so we gotta put the kickstand down right here because this is so good to me right now. Catch this, and one of the listeners like, wow, this is me. This was me. This is what I was doing. What we often do with that narrative when we're playing it in our head is say something like, he don't know how to love me because I need this, and this. And we don't even understand that what we're doing is not healthy. We're
Mhm.
feeding our insecurity. When we talk about insecurities, typically, this is not what it looks like when we're talking about it. But that's
Mm.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah. It's funny, when you talked about feeding the insecurity, I imagined getting bigger, kind of like the Oompa Loompa girl or the blueberry, whatever her name is, Violet.
Yes.
I thought about getting bigger in that you feeding the insecurity drives a wedge between you and the person you're trying to connect with.
Yes. Yes. And so instead of them coming closer, that thing you played out in your mind that he wasn't a part of, it now becomes the thing that comes true in your reality
Bingo.
because you've played it to the point you played it out in real life
Hmm.
and you drove him away. Well, you didn't drive him away, but could have driven him away.
Well, I mean, I probably came close a few times. You can
But he
stay on the
hung
hills
in
if you
there.
want to.
He hung
Yeah,
in
he hung in there.
there. Okay, okay. That's an interesting start. So,
Yeah,
was there ever like a major turn? Did you have to do something to get yourself in a better place with securing the
yeah,
attachment?
for sure. It took some time. It took some time. Um, yeah, I had to become more attuned with myself. Um, it it's a gift that my daughter gave me when I was pregnant with her. I was very conscious about the energy I carried. I thought that if I felt anxious, she would feel it. So I was very hyper vigilant about not carrying stress or anxiety because I didn't want to pass that on to her in utero. And so what that did was really force me to break it down. And then it helps that like I'm a therapist, so like I'm talking about this stuff every day. So it really like just locks it in. But I became more familiar with what I was feeling and what I
Mm.
needed.
Oh,
And those two things are big, but the biggest part of that is actually acting on it and meeting those needs. I think a lot of people we get to that point of like awareness. Oh, I'm very self-aware is what I hear a lot. But do you act on that self-awareness? And so if we go back to my example, if I needed that reassurance, I could have just asked, "Do you like me?" And that might take some vulnerability. It's a risk,
yes.
but it's very necessary. I will say that again, like when we're talking about attachment styles, I try to be really mindful and sensitive to the person who has an insecure attachment and panics or feels doomed or stuck. What I've noticed through years and years of talking about this with people is that many people saving grace, like all that's really needed is like that one figure from your childhood that made you feel safe or that made
Mm.
you feel um, loved, secure, protected. Sometimes that's a grandparent. For me, it was an uncle. Like it really can be the biggest difference in someone's life. So if
Because
you could be that for someone, or if you can draw draw on that from someone, even if they've deceased, if they're deceased or not, like I think that could be really insightful and helpful, and carving your path towards healing.
that's good. And I think sometimes we magnify what we didn't have or what wasn't good or
Mhm.
didn't feel good, and that overshadows what was good or who was good. Because sometimes it might be that Sunday school teacher who waited on you every Sunday morning
Mhm.
at the door with the two cookies and the juice in the cup, saying, "Good morning, I'm glad you're here."
Yes.
But you
It could
felt
be a
safe.
friend's parent. It can be
Yes.
anyone. But I think the people who get stuck in it, it's likely because they haven't grieved. You know, we don't talk a lot about grief that's not related to someone passing away, but there's grief involved in people that are still here.
Yes.
There's grief involved with not having that ideal childhood, that ideal upbringing, that ideal parent. It's grieving that that's not what you have, and it's grieving what you thought woulda, coulda, shoulda been today.
Ooh, that's good right there. That's good.
So,
And
yeah.
And to grieve
Good.
a parent, even if the parent is here, it doesn't always mean that the parent was a bad parent.
No.
It might mean that the parent did the best they could with what they had, but I'm grieving the fact that they weren't able to meet the needs I had at that time.
And that's an inner struggle, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we feel like we have to pick one or the other.
And we
Either I'm
do.
going to be angry and hold on to this, and feel justified in the fact that, like, no, they didn't do the right thing, or I forgive them and then I have to dismiss my pain. But really, you want to do both. You want
Yes.
to do, you can
Yes.
do both. Both are relevant.
Very. And it's your lived experience.
Hmm.
And you can
Yeah.
definitely experience both. There is a question in the chat. One of the listeners says, speak to how trauma and bad relationships rewire your attachments.
Yes. Trauma, yeah. I mean, I don't even think it takes trauma. It's really not that hard to rewire your attachment, unfortunately. And fortunately, right? You can rewire it. But it can be rewired, because it shapes what you begin to expect
Hmm.
in the future. And so if I experience this traumatic thing in a relationship, it's hard to let that go when you're pursuing another relationship. So again, there comes that overreaction when something looks similar, when really the threat level is very different. To drive that point home even more, oftentimes things we perceived as a threat as a child versus an adult, we'll just think like when we're a kid, and if there was an emotional threat from a caregiver, like we are kind of screwed, right? We depend, as a kid, we depend on adults for things. So
Yeah.
we can't like rage against the machine and then think that like there's not going to be consequences, or stand up for yourself in a certain way. You may feel powerless or you haven't developed that skill yet. But damn it, if that happens, that the same thing happens as an adult, I'm not defenseless. I don't have to act in the same way. I don't have to retreat in the same way because I have more tools. And the other person has, the dynamic is different. It's not a parent child. Even if it is still a parent, a lot of us as adults, we don't live with our parents anymore. They don't have the same control and power over us as they did. So the threat is different.
I also think that when we talk about trauma, when we don't resolve that trauma, it plays a huge part in how we see the world going forward because trauma
Mhm.
changes our perspective, right? Moving forward. And so it rewires your attachment based on how you see things, your perspective. Oftentimes, I think when we talk about being vulnerable, we have this ideology that how I look on the outside, how I show up is what it is. That hinders us a lot of the times from being real. You talked about
Mhm.
acting on recognizing and being aware of where we are in our attachment style, but that's not enough. We have to act on it. Well, if I'm a boss chick and I'm independent and I don't need anybody, I'm not trying to be vulnerable and say to this man, I need to know if you like me because I'm too busy showing up to show you that I don't need you to like me because I do have other choices. And so I think it begins to complicate things, whether it's unresolved trauma, an avoidant attachment style, an insecure attachment style. It all starts doing this on the inside. And I think that caters to us getting stuck
Mhm.
because we don't know what's what. How do we begin to take it all apart?
Exactly.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
Vulnerability plays a huge part in the healing process.
Yes. And I feel like our lack of vulnerability blocks so much. the rewiring really. It doesn't give you an opportunity to be exposed to a different outcome,
And if you're
to
not
see that this.
exposed, you cannot be rewired.
Mhm. Which is why sometimes I laugh when people say I'm taking a break from the dating game, because I'm, yeah, I don't know. I just feel that it's not to say that you shouldn't take a break. I think there definitely is value to it, but thinking that's going to be the end all be all, the break alone isn't going to be helpful. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to need to practice out all the things that you did in your active recovery break anyway, to really reinforce and test those things out. Does
But
that
it's
make
hard.
sense?
Yeah, it does. But it's I think
Yeah.
some of the simple things that you're saying will help us sometimes are very difficult things. One of the
Hmm.
things I have in my book, I've labeled a section. It's called "Sit in It."
Hmm.
Sit
I
in
love
it,
that.
whatever the it is. A lot of the times we don't want to sit in it. So when you
Yeah.
say, okay, you're aware, I can't even become aware. Let's take your situation since you shared it with us.
Mhm.
You're sitting home and you have all these things going in your head about this man who truly you are interested in.
Yeah.
Let's be real about this. You're interested in him, but you're playing games in your head because of your attachment style. But if
Hmm.
you don't sit in it, if you don't look at yourself and say, this happened with John, Joe, Jimmy, and James in my
Well,
past.
dang. How many
Yeah,
people do you think? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. How did you know their names?
it happened with all of them. But instead of
Mhm.
us sitting in it, we often cut people off and say,
Yeah.
whatever, I can do me.
As much as it hurts us, it also makes us feel very protected in doing it that way. So I love that you have that section. I too, in my book, I don't know, we haven't revealed the title, but I guess I could hear since,
Yes, tell us the title of your new book.
it's called The Attachment Style Makeover, a workbook for transforming relationship patterns. And so myself and my co-author Jessica Harris, love you girl, um, we intentionally wanted to create a workbook for the very reasons we're talking about today. Oftentimes, we want certain things to be different. We are aware that there's a problem, but we don't know how to change them. So
Mm,
we wanted to present it in a way that allowed you to go through the steps and be more
good.
reflective and to learn how to sit in it. And so we do have exercises to promote the sitting in it part. And I even think that there's nuances to that, because some people can sit in it, but they're actually spiraling versus
Mm,
sitting in it with awareness and compassion and care.
that's
And I
good.
really don't think sitting in it needs to be a dwell on it. The sitting
No,
in it literally could be a minute.
yeah,
You could, that's a muscle to build, right? Sitting in it could be noticing what comes up when I'm in a boardroom, making a mental note and circling back to it later,
yes. That's so
right?
good.
And
Yes,
so it could be practical. It doesn't mean that I think we have this fear of like, if I open that box, look, all this stuff is going to come out and I'm not going to be able to control it. And that's not the truth.
and we don't have to control it. At the
No.
end of the day, we don't have to control it, but we need to begin to heal it. That's our
Mhm.
responsibility. Sometimes it's going to be messy, Miranda.
It is. Yeah.
It's going to be messy, it's going to be ugly, it's going to be nasty. But if
It's
you
going to be unpolished.
it's gonna be unpolished. Okay, I am asking you to put the polish up. Okay,
Yeah.
put
Everybody
the
type
polish,
polish in the chat.
put the
Yeah.
polish up, because
Yeah.
when
Put
we
it away.
polish it, we're hiding the blemishes, the scrapes, the scratches, and those are just your war
Mhm.
marks. to say, I've been through something, but I survived.
And we polish it and we're really covering the map to success, right?
Ooh, let me snatch that right there. Yes.
Mhm.
We don't want to polish that pain. Someone said fear of being hurt again blocks you from opening up to people.
Yeah, and it's okay to be afraid. That's normal. Like you'd be almost crazy not to be fearful. But with if we're acting um I don't know how I want to say it, but like you have to just learn to manage the fear. What are things I can do to mitigate that risk? So we can get in a car accident, but we mitigate that risk by doing several things. We wear seatbelts, we pay attention. Most of us don't. Depends. Turn the radio up too loud. Maybe I did in my 20s, but I don't do that anymore. I pay attention. I wear my glasses. Like, there's things you can do to
Yeah.
mitigate that risk. And
That's I'm gonna
so,
have to steal that example. That's a good example. Yeah.
mhm,
I think we're scared to feel the fear.
mm.
And it's really
or
okay.
we or we think that okay, so I think that sometimes we will look at certain emotions and put judgments on them. Like these are good emotions, these are bad emotions. And the bad emotions I don't want to feel. I have to avoid those emotions. And the reality is that all emotions are the same, they're equal. They're there to teach us something. If you felt happy in a relationship and really good, then that informs you of the elements and the traits and the things that are in the relationship that make you feel safe that you should be cultivating in your future relationships or in relationships that need some work, right? These
Yeah.
are the missing ingredients. Let me put those in there, right? And so if we are feeling fearful, it's letting us know, okay, I don't feel safe in these situations. Perhaps these are warning signs that if I see this in another potential partner that I can avoid or I don't put myself in situations to experience that again. So with like going back to a caregiver who maybe we're going to go see during the holidays, it's if I'm afraid that things will go left like they have in the past, it could mean that you go no contact, but it also could mean that I don't engage in the same way.
I limit how long I'm there. Yeah, you can put some other
Mhm.
things in place.
Maybe I'm not alone with it. Like there's a lot of things that you could do depending based on the situation and the fears that you have.
That's good. That's so good. When we talk about attachment styles, and you look at the title for tonight, many times we're getting stuck in places because we are not aware, or we are aware and we don't know how to move forward. Um, our guest is going to give us a free opportunity, I understand, to figure out some things about our attachment style. So, can you share with us what that freebie is? We like free, and
Yes,
how the listeners can access it moving forward.
absolutely. So for you, I have what's called an attachment style audit. And I really wanted to be intentional about, again, how it's presented. You can take a quiz. But like Jess, my co-author, and I know that oftentimes with quizzes, we answer in the way that gives us the answer we want to hear, or we answer in a way of like how we want to be versus how we actually are. And so I present the material in a way that really makes you think and to get real and to start discovering like what are the things that make me feel safe and unsafe in relationships so that we can better act on it.
Okay. So, how can they get the audit?
Yes, you can go to therapistmirandacampbell.com and get it there. Are you typing that in?
Uh huh.
I love it. Yes,
Yes. You can go to
therapistmiranda.com. If you go,
therapistmirandacampbell.com and you're going to find the attachment style audit so that you can find
correct.
out what your attachment style is.
Yes, if you go to the store, you just download it and it's free. So,
Okay. Go to the store at therapistmirandacampbell.com, download it for free. Not even free 99, for free.
Not even.
And
Yeah.
find
And it's a good
out.
preview.
Well, I'm gonna go and do mine because I want to know what
Yeah.
it's saying about me and my attachment styles. I
Yeah,
think
and I think it's important, like, some people get really tripped up on, like, the category, like, am I anxious? Am I avoidant? Am I this? Am I that? And I really don't think it matters. What really matters is knowing your behaviors, right?
mm,
What are insecure behaviors that I have? How are they working for me? Are they no longer working for me? And do I need to replace them? And what do I replace them with?
that's good. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things, but I want you to give a description of what a secure attachment style looks like for an adult.
Okay. For an adult, that is someone who isn't often threatened by conflict. They can, address a thing. They can even maybe be in an argument, but that is not like earth shattering in their head about the relationship. A securely attached person is consistent. Um, they are emotionally available. They're aware of like what their needs are and they're confident in asking for them.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out with us in the elephant room tonight. Remember, look out for Miranda's new book that'll be dropping. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram. She'll be dropping some nuggets, letting you all know. And guess what, y'all? Polished Pain came back from Mexico, is now in Louisiana, heading back to Dallas tomorrow. Polished Pain is all over the place, but Polished Pain will be hitting the market next month. So get ready because y'all already know it's going to be on and popping. So moving forward, we're going to be talking about a lot of Polished Pain, what it looks like, what it shows up like, and I'm excited about all the things that's going to happen with Polished Pain because we're going to put that polish up. That's what we're going to do, Miranda. We're putting the polish up.
Yes.
Thank you all for
Yes.
joining us for another episode of The Elephant Room. Until next time, and in the in between time, be well.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Elephant Room. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for more powerful insights, down-to-earth conversations, and the courage to face whatever comes your way. This is where vulnerability meets strength and transformation gets real.